Wonderful to have you with us, Linda. And I think we'll just jump in because, people are joining, and
Sure.
I think it'll be a wide-ranging conversation that, folks can pop into at any time. So we got excited to have this conversation after we were catching up over dinner at a conference and already having this conversation, but just, the two of us, or I guess like the three or four of us who were
Right.
who were dining. And it occurred to me that your life story is just the kind of story that I like to feature on my Substack, about the psychology of ambition, and that the kind of ambition broadly construed that I'm really trying to kind of define and exemplify through the stories that I tell. It importantly includes the more artistic, creative, uh, kinds of ventures and the kind of life that you can build and be entrepreneurial about, right?
Mhm.
When you're an artist, and you're one of my favorite living artists, and
Thank you.
hopefully I will soon own uh, one or more paintings from your collection.
That'd be
And so,
great.
yeah, and others on the call may also walk away interested. So, what I would love to hear a little bit of the story that you were telling me at dinner
Mhm.
about how you actually got started. Like what was the original kind of seed that was planted in your head? How did you relate to art as a kid, and what was the path that took you from, I like to paint, I like to draw,
Mhm.
to now I'm a professional artist? Because it was not a linear path, I think it's safe to say.
No, it took me a long time to end up back. It was almost like ending back up where I started because I've always been interested in art, since I was a small child, always drawing everything around me. And it didn't occur to me till it was time to pick a career that I actually like had to make money at doing something. And my parents were very concerned that if I pursued a career as an artist, I wouldn't make any money, and that's what they told me. It's not really true.
Mhm.
So we looked really hard to find some, like, art adjacent career for me, and we ended up with industrial design, which like, product design, which I knew nothing about, but, like, when you're 18, you're not very smart, at least I wasn't. So, I picked that, and I ended up getting a degree in industrial design, and found out at the end that I really wasn't that good at it and didn't really my heart wasn't really in it. And I ended up getting a job in industrial design, and it was sort of cool and it was fun, but it really wasn't something that I really felt deep down like it was something I was cut out for, that I was contributing much to. Like, I had nothing to say. And I started branching out, and I was taking some classes in graphic design in my spare time, and then I started studying fashion design and pattern making, and always circling around an art adjacent, aesthetically oriented career, but never even thinking about going back to being a fine artist. And it
I
wasn't
think
until an assignment in my fashion design class where we had to go to a museum and sketch costumes for a fashion exhibit that it occurred to me that, I love drawing, and I had, like, not done it for so long, and it was that moment where I decided I was gonna quit my job, and I went back to art school, and not full time. I was sort of Andrew had just gotten a job at Microsoft, and we were moving, and life was complicated, so I took classes here and there.
Andrew, who is your husband, who
Andrew, who was
was
my
already at
husband.
this point in the story your husband.
That's right.
And am I remembering correctly, Andrew happens to be at the dinner in question where you were sharing the story, and I think I remember him chiming in that actually he noticed that you enjoyed the sketching and drawing parts of your job, but even maybe before you did. Do you remember that? Is
Yeah,
that
that's what he
reassuring?
said, but I don't remember that, but he certainly was on
Revisionist
board.
history.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
he was certainly living with me my dissatisfaction with what I was doing, and, fortunately for me, he was earning enough money at the time that I didn't have to really worry anymore. I didn't feel like I had to worry about, the thing that my parents were worried about. Do I have to make money? So I just focused on what I wanted to do, and so that was the big change for me.
Yeah, and at some point also parenting. So I don't know what the
Parenting didn't
exact
happen till much later
there.
'cause,
Okay.
like,
Yeah, I
I
don't know
didn't have
that timeline.
yeah, that I didn't have my daughter till I was, like, 29, so I mean, 39.
Oh,
So it was,
that's not actually old these days, you know?
yeah, I know,
I
I
say
know.
that, like
But when all
but
these
yeah,
decisions were going on, we hadn't even thought about having a family yet, so that wasn't, like, in the equation
yeah,
yet.
it's part of the yeah, so one thing I'm really curious about, so I definitely hear you that, industrial design wasn't where your heart wasn't where you were gonna land, same for fashion. But I'm curious, the Steve Jobs, kind of sentiment that we connect the dots looking backward. I'm curious if there was
Mhm.
anything that in retrospect you learned or anything you picked up, like any sensibilities, any skills, perspectives that in
Well,
some way came back and served you?
on the I mean, on a practical level, there's some stuff in industrial design that was related to design that did help me learn about composition and how to handle tools and how to hold a pencil and how to make, how to work with my hands and get effects, so that was relevant, um, but not really in a deeply philosophical kind of way. But I think
Mhm.
more with the it was more on the level of this is these 2 things, fashion and industrial design and graphic design. I had nothing to say. I realize now that the dissatisfaction was that I actually wasn't that I wasn't good at it or that I couldn't
Mm.
do it, is I actually felt like I had nothing to say. It's like
Mm.
there was no dress I wanted to design, and there was no product that I had a feeling about, and I think that made me feel bad about myself because I was just pursuing a career without, really
Ambition?
having a motivation, yeah, and any ambition, and it wasn't till that moment at the museum when I was sketching that I realized that, "Oh, there's something I want to do." So
Yeah.
so that's the big lesson for me was that the realization that I had to be, like, wanting to make something, wanting to contribute something that was important to me,
Yeah. Like you
and that I
needed a
hadn't
vision.
had it. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Like vision, like yeah, some kind of like an ideal that you're trying to realize, like something that you are bringing into the world that wants to exist and doesn't exist. Am I understanding right? You know what you
Yeah,
mean?
and even more importantly, that it wasn't like industrial design, it wasn't personally important to me. It's like I didn't
Mm.
care what
What furniture
I don't
people
know.
in the store
What the
or
toaster looked like, the product that I was design
yeah.
I didn't really care, and I didn't realize I didn't care so much at the time. It was just this
Mm.
feeling of boredom and
Huh.
unhappiness. So I think I learned to recognize that when I did have something that I really wanted to say, that I was like, "Oh, this is why
That
people
feels
would
it.
rather work than, like, go out to dinner with friends." You know, this is why you might choose,
Huh.
like, to wanna do this all the time because it's important, not because you have to make yourself want to do it, but because you naturally want to do it.
Yeah, so it sounds like before then you wouldn't have necessarily like did you think of yourself as like lazy or as,
Kind of. I
like
think I
not
would,
a
like,
passionate person?
I think I would compare myself to the characters in Atlas Shrugged, who are, like, so passionate about what they're doing, and I would want so much to be that kind of
Mm.
person, but I didn't have a thing, and I didn't it didn't seem real to me that someone would actually choose. I think there was a scene of, like, Hank Rearden at a dinner party, and all he wanted to do was get back to his desk to work, and I didn't really understand that, and now I understand that.
Yeah. It's like you needed to have that thing that was like your
Yeah.
railroad or that's Dagny, right?
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, Atlas Shrugged is a novel by Ayn Rand that, Linda and I have bonded over many years. Um, yeah, interesting. When you said earlier that you hadn't even had on your radar that, like, you could be a fine artist or that that could be a career,
Mhm.
I'm curious, why not? Or maybe by default, people just don't think of being a professional artist, but some people do, right? Or even
I
if they
think
think it'll be hard.
for me, when I was in high school, I was the artist, and I took all the art classes, and but then when I started looking at colleges and I saw what kind of art was being produced at the time, I didn't like any of it because,
Yeah.
as you know, I'm a realist artist, and what was popular then was much more either abstract or conceptual or much more loose, and I
Mhm.
just wasn't interested. So after I decided that I didn't wanna be an artist, I just never thought about it again because I thought I couldn't be.
'Cause, that's what it is to be an artist. It's to
Yeah.
in our day and age, at least, it's to do this abstract stuff. That's not of interest to me, therefore, there's no career
No.
path here, was the
And it didn't I wasn't like I wasn't informed enough to know that I could have done it anyway,
Right? I
or
mean,
or
that
or, or done
yeah,
some research and found out because sure that kind of art still existed back then, in the
but it
70s.
w
But
but it's, like, off the beaten path, like, you really would have had to
exactly,
go out and,
exactly,
find it or find someone to mentor you on it and figure out, well, has anybody monetized it and how are they doing that? And is that path available to me? That
right,
those aren't kind of questions that your parents help you ask or that you ask by default, right? So,
yeah,
wasn't on your radar yet. And
exactly.
then so then it got back on your radar, and then you mentioned going back to school, and then at that point, did you find someone to mentor you in fine art? Like, how did you make your way back to
Well,
your
at that
roots?
point, my husband got his job at Microsoft, and we moved from San Francisco to Seattle,
Mhm.
and I found a school here called the Academy of Realist Art,
Look at
and I
that.
was like, "Wow."
It's
And I
handy.
started taking classes, not full time, but I found a really good teacher, and I just sort of like, I found my thing, and I took, classes here and there, and then one day, my teacher said to me, "You are a professional. You're not a student anymore. I'm looking at your work." And I remember that, like, that's the day I thought, "Oh, I'm an artist today." And from then
Well,
on, I
yeah,
treated it as my profession.
that's yeah. How cool that you can actually trace it to that moment, which
I
big
know, it
don't
is.
always do.
I really think I needed
Ah,
someone in a position, like, of authority in my mind to tell me that.
yeah, to kind of, like, license it or activate it or make it official, like,
Yeah,
sort of like a degree or sort of like, when we get a certificate that means something to us, we don't think it's just
exactly, yeah,
arbitrary. It's like,
exactly.
"Hey, like, this is my diploma. Like, I can
Right,
now I've graduated." It's really cool. And then, it's interesting, so you mentioned you didn't really worry about money so much during a large portion of your
yeah.
career where you were kind of doing what you really wanted to do, making art your way.
Mhm.
But at some point, you started to, and probably not through dire necessity, it's like you were gonna be out on the street, but you became more interested in you've built this amazing Instagram following, and you're now, more, explicitly, actively looking to sell some of your paintings. How
Right.
did that come about? And what
Well,
motivates it for you?
for about, I don't know, 20 years, I mean, I was working on these paintings and selling them through I had a website, sort of a very amateur kind of website, and I would sell paintings over my website, now and then. Some years it was more, some years it was less, and so I had a constant stream of sales, but I didn't still think of myself as having a career because I wasn't in a gallery and I wasn't, um, really out in the world very much. I was sort of at home doing what I'm doing, and art can be very, isolating in a way. You're just, like, by yourself a lot, or at least I was. And it wasn't until 5 years ago that I hired an art career consultant, and because I was just tired of, like, not having connection with the outside world and having people see my work, and, like, that's when I got on Instagram, and that's when things started to take off because suddenly there are millions of people. It wasn't millions right away. It took a few years to get to that, but eventually it was millions of people seeing, not millions, yeah, views of my work, and comparing that with just sitting in my studio every day by myself. It was a huge, like, my eyes were open that there was, like, a bigger world out there, and it made me want to have people see my work,
Mhm.
and made me I started entering competitions, and I started contacting galleries, and there were people I met on Instagram, and I got lots of, really nice comments from people looking at my work, and I had this sense that I was, uh, influencing the world, and not so much just like a popularity contest, which is what
Right.
Instagram can feel like sometimes, like, "Oh, wow, this many people looked at my work," but feeling like many of them were artists, and they were hungry for this kind of information, so I thought, well, they were like me, so it felt
Mhm.
really good to explain that art could be, what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, the way that
Um,
nobody explained it to you when you were young, right?
exactly.
What you would have really loved to hear, and to just be able
But
to, from the comfort of your computer at home, to be able or phone or,
Yeah.
of a screen to be able to actually get these really detailed, really accessible lessons on how to mix paints and how, like, how does a professional artist actually build an artwork from scratch?
Right, and also for the people who weren't artists to tell them why I did what I did and why I thought
Mhm,
it was important, and I think the ambition comes into it, whereas before, I was mostly just in my head, doing what I did. Now I feel like I really do want my work to be in the world and for people to see it and for me to explain why I do what I do. And I'm not always sure why that's important to me because sometimes, like, my husband would say, "Well, the only important thing should be that you're making work that you love, and it doesn't matter if
mm,
anyone sees it."
mm,
And I realize now that, no, I don't agree with that. It's
mm,
not enough to do, well, it's beautiful work that no one sees. For me, it's not enough. And it's not just
mhm.
that I wanna be, like, admired but it's that I wanna to have my view of the world out in the world and to change the world.
Yeah, you wanna make your dent in the universe.
Right, and for
Yeah,
people looking at
good
my
job.
paintings, I hope they can see a little bit what I think the world can be.
Yeah, maybe more beautiful than a dent, right? You want to,
Yeah.
you know, fill your corner of the universe with beautiful still life. Yeah, I
And at
mean,
this point, I don't even know if I'm answering your question anymore, so we sort of I've
oh,
rambled away, but
you definitely are, and raising new ones that I didn't even know I had. Yeah, this is great. But speaking of which, anyone on the chat is more than welcome to ask questions, and you can shape how this conversation unfolds. If there are things you're curious about from Linda's life or her art, or where you can, buy a painting, whatever the case may be. And obviously, I welcome anybody who's not already subscribed to Linda. She's got a Substack too that we're all going to be encouraging her to, you know, write on more actively.
yeah. Oh, I've been trying to do that.
Read more of her story. Yeah, I mean, one thing I obviously think about a lot kind of in my world is how ambition gets activated in people and how it gets directed and channeled and, kind of healthier and less healthy ways that it can be channeled. And so it's part of what really intrigues me about your story is it's not the kind of typical drill sergeant coded story, in my drill sergeant Zen guru kind of builder framework of somebody who kind of from day one is constantly feeling, like anxious about needing to overachieve and needing to get all, collect the prizes and the trophies and climb the ladders. Like it doesn't, I don't kind of get that feel of the kind of like type A, personality in your story. I very much get the feel of somebody who kind of came upon an ambition because you saw what was possible. Like an ambition was sort of awakened in you, which
Yeah.
I think we can all learn something from, because in a way we can kind of retrace, like, it wasn't this blind ambition looking for a target. Like your ambition from day one was an ambition toward something, like, toward influencing an audience in the way that you were starting to realize that you could, toward getting your art, which you already, had and loved, getting it seen by a wider audience. I mean, I don't know if there's even a question here. It's kind of a reflection, but
Mhm.
I'm curious, if it gives rise to any more kind of memories or reflections on kind of what lit this fire in you.
Well, I think like I said before, I used to feel bad that I didn't have this
Mm,
driving thing
that's
in
right.
my
Okay, so
life.
it did bother you, that kind of type
Pardon
A.
me?
So it did bother you, like it bothers some of us that, "Oh, well, I'm not achieving more," or "I don't
Well, no,
have
I don't know if I was
more."
clear. It did bother me that I felt
Right.
like maybe I should have been more
Yeah.
ambitious or had some goal, but I didn't know what it was. I realize now that it was the art, but I didn't know that that was possible, so I
Right.
just let it go. So I felt like I was drifting. And,
Okay.
the things in my life that were valuable, like meeting my husband and falling in love and living in San Francisco, and all that was very exciting and fun and occupied my mind, but there was always something missing.
Yeah. And you were aware of that as a kind of ache.
Yeah, and now
Okay.
that's not missing anymore, and it just feels so much better. Of course, now I feel like I've got so many things going on that I feel like I don't have any time because 'cause I've just recently started teaching, and that's
Right.
another thing. And there's all this marketing that I never used to do that I have to do now,
Mhm.
and things
Have
like
to?
Have to, right?
Interesting.
In order to, like, get out in the world, I have to actually make an effort and write things and
Yeah.
talk to people, and so it's, I mean, it's better than being bored, but there's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
mean,
stuff going on now.
it's got the downsides of stress and busyness and constant competition for your time
Yeah, and I think as
that
you get older, at least I've found that time seems much more like a precious commodity, so it's like, "Oh my god, what am I going to do with today? And what's the best way to use today?" And it's like, well, it can be a little stressful.
yeah, don't know it. Yeah. But it sounds like it's a stress born of a love of your work and an ambition to really make the most of it, right? Which
Yeah,
so
I wouldn't change it.
yeah. Yeah, ooh, we're getting some questions. Ooh, what was the journey like to discover a realist school from seeing abstract art as you first did? The journey.
You mean
Yeah, if there's anything.
I mean, uh, I guess I thought that realist art only existed in very old museums, and I might love this stuff, but it didn't exist anymore. So it was surprising to me to see that people were actually doing that,
Mhm.
now. Um,
Right.
but a lot of stuff, it wasn't that I immediately loved it because a lot of stuff that was presented as realist art to me was very boring and was just copies of stuff you see in museums or was sort of a trite or like a wine bottle on a table with some fruit. It's like it was boring to me. So I did have to kind of invent the kind of realism that I found exciting. And that didn't exist in the school. But at the time, I was just very excited to learn that, wow, I can actually learn how to draw. And the thing I'm drawing looks like the thing I'm drawing. And they're teaching me perspective. And I'm not just trying to think about my feelings, which was what they would have us think about when I was a student, in high school,
Right.
because I wasn't interested in that. So it was exciting. And I wish I had, who knows what would have happened if I discovered that earlier, if I'd known that that's what like art school could have been.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like you've still gotten to live out and are still getting to live out quite a, prolific career. So it's not
Yeah. Yeah.
turns out it wasn't too late
No, it wasn't too late.
by any means. And thank goodness, for all of us who now get to enjoy your art. This reminds me of now I'm very curious to dig into your actual art and
Mhm.
kind of the process underneath it. I'm really curious. Have you always mainly been drawn to still life art? Because that's kind of how I know you primarily. But I'm curious how that,
Yeah.
why,
Well,
how and why that was the
when I
draw.
started studying at the Academy of Realist Art, which is now called Gage Academy in Seattle, we were doing a lot of figurative work, drawing models, and I was doing portraiture quite a
Hmm.
bit, and I was actually getting really good at it, and it was exciting. But that was just about when I got pregnant, and my I was a little distracted for a while, and
Right.
then I realized that I just didn't really 2 things about portraiture. One is that I didn't wanna have to hire models because it was awkward for me. It was one thing having a model at school, but to have someone come to my studio
And
seemed awkward,
this robe.
and I had nothing to
Yeah.
say. I mean,
Again.
I could I could just put a face in the middle of a piece of paper and have it look just like the face, but to me, that isn't a piece of art. That's a study.
Hmm.
And I had no idea, similarly to industrial design, I had no, like, or fashion design, there was nothing I wanted to say with
Mhm.
portraiture.
Interesting.
So it was the inconvenience, and I didn't quite know how to make a painting out of it. And then with still life, especially when I had a young child, it was always there. Like, I always go back to it
Hmm.
at any time
Like
I
there are
wanted.
objects. There are always objects around.
They're in my
Is that?
studio waiting for me,
Mhm.
and it wasn't
Mhm.
like a model that I would have to hire for a specific time.
Hmm.
And I found that it suited me, that there's something about still life that's very contemplative,
Hmm.
and it's unlike a landscape, and even a landscape is kind of far away,
Mhm.
and you don't control it so much unless you start inventing things. And a
Hmm.
portrait, I didn't know what to do with it. It was more about man's character, and I think I was more interested in just seeing. And
Interesting.
with a still life, it's something we're all familiar with. It's something on a table in front of you, and it's very intimate and close. And it just suited me to be able just to study things without their moving and to observe.
Hmm.
And
But also arrange them. is part of
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'm hearing. Like, you
Yeah,
have control of the scene. Mhm,
that's crucial, actually. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, I am arranging these things. So the still life, it was something that I could make this little world that I could completely control, and I could study it, and there are, like, 2 things about a still life. One for me is that it looks super real, and the other is that it's designed. So it's not just a
mhm,
slice of life.
mhm,
It's something that I have structured and created to, reflect a sense of order and beauty and dynamism that
mhm.
I give to it. But if it didn't for me, if it didn't look real, it wouldn't be like a world I could step into. Like, I couldn't live in it. In a way I live in my paintings.
Yeah.
And
Those
so both with that, capturing the reality and organizing it, the still life just really seemed to work for me.
interesting, fascinating. Yeah, I'm really curious partly how your seeing has been trained, or how you've trained your seeing through your work as a still life artist. I'm imagining, if that were my charter, and if every day the way that I look at objects is kind of through this lens of, ooh, could I arrange, could this
Mhm.
make an arrangement, and kind of how does it catch the light, and which is so far from how I am notoriously like, I might as well be blind because I don't notice
Mhm.
things in my visual environment, and a source of much ribbing by those close to me. And
Uh-huh.
so I'm really fascinated by your artist's eye. Like, I'm curious, if we could get inside your head and see like you, what would we find?
Well, the interesting thing is, like, if you were to walk around my house, you might recognize things that are in
Hmm.
my paintings, but when they're in the house, they're just things. It's a vase. It's a vase, or it's a scarf, or it's even a handbag, things that but when they're in the painting, suddenly they've been transformed. They have been transformed by art into another I wanna say another world. It's like when they're not in the painting, they're just things. Once I have arranged them and observed them and painted them, then they've been, uh, kind of immortalized in a way, and they have more meaning than they did from themselves. So nothing in my paintings is symbolic. It's
Hmm.
not like the vase isn't there because it represents, like, a vessel, for instance.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
there because it's that shape and that
Hmm.
color and that texture, and it interacts with other things in the painting that are, working with it. So, um, so I both look at things with potential to paint them,
Hmm.
but the arranging is a whole other thing. And of course, when I'm in the mode of painting, my brain gets into a certain, like, painter's mode where everything I see, I'm, like, deciding how to mix that color or what
Hmm.
shape it is because I'm,
Cool.
very
Yeah.
focused on seeing things.
Okay, so you can turn that on and off.
Not really. Like, if I've been painting all day, I have my painter eye on. So I might be sitting at dinner looking at the plate and saying, "Oh, that's lead white with cadmium yellow."
Okay.
It's funny now that my
Yeah.
husband Andrew started to paint too, we have these conversations now, like,
Mhm.
"What color? How do you mix that color?" So it's
So,
always on my
yeah,
mind.
that's kind of what I would guess, and it's cool to just compare, as a psychologist, people joke or they assume that, "Oh, you're a psychologist, so you're analyzing me." Like, "No, I'm not analyzing you," but I am always curious about people's motivations, and I am always, noticing patterns. Like, I can't turn that off completely, and sometimes,
Yeah.
that creates interesting challenges in day-to-day life.
And I guess I'm
But
super sensitive to the way things are arranged. Like, if the cleaning lady comes and she likes to arrange, if they're like 3 we have 3, candle holders on our table, and she always puts them, like, right in a line, and every time I walk in, I like, "No," and I set
I'm
it
like,
up, so it's like,
"This is wrong."
there's a little asymmetry there, we need a little bit that color looks better next to this color. Or in my garden, I'm, like, moving things around, so I'm always designing things to look what I think is right. I don't know, I can't always explain exactly what's right, but it's important to me.
Yeah, and I know you've mentioned a couple of times this idea of, like, having something to say or knowing what you wanna say, and clearly you found that with painting. and but then I'm really curious, you're not saying it in words, you're saying it through this arranged composition.
Right.
I mean, are there words you could put to some of what you're saying with your art or ways to describe it?
I mean, it's not my paintings never tell a story.
Mhm.
It's funny, somebody once reviewed a painting of mine many years ago, and they told this story, and I thought, "Oh, that's fascinating." It's not at all what I was
That's not what
thinking.
I would have thought. Yeah,
No.
always
And then
fun
I
to
thought, "Well,
have.
maybe I was thinking that, and I didn't know I was thinking that." But
Hmm,
there isn't a story, there's no narrative.
mhm.
Um, but what it is something that it's hard to explain. It's like, for me, I think when I was growing up, life seemed kind of chaotic. I had a difficult childhood in a lot of ways, and going into my room and drawing was a way to sort of be organized and make the world, and I still feel like that a little bit, in that I can, not that I'm escaping into my work from unhappiness, 'cause I'm happy, but
You're a
it's
really
that I
happy
am
person, it shows.
in making these arrangements, I am making a structure that feels really, like, fascinating to me. Like, I can decide where the eye goes, and I can have something that is the focal point, and I can have it be exciting, and I can have it look so real that it's just sorta cool, and I can I can take out all the unimportant things and just add the important things. And if something I'm painting has an angle that I don't like, I can paint it differently. Or if there's a color that doesn't work, I change it. So I'm not a slave, although I'm a realist, I'm not a slave to reality. I want it to
Mhm.
look real so you experience it as being possible. But I
Yeah.
don't but I am not just putting something there because it's there. It always has to be something I choose. Everything
Mhm.
in my paintings is chosen. Even if I throw a scarf down and it folds into a certain arrangement, and I can't really control that. I can change it
No,
if it's
in the
the
painting.
wrong if
Yeah,
I
I mean, and
screw
this
if
speaks to a question somebody's asking too about like bending the scene. Do you ever paint it a little differently than it looks? Or do you try to change it in the world so that then you can change it in the
I'm
painting?
so meticulous and wanna create the effect that I do want it to be as close as possible in front of me so I can study it,
Hmm,
but I'm not a slave to that. So
okay.
if there's a color that isn't quite right, I'll change it. Or in my last painting, there was a scarf with a pattern of squares, but I
Mhm.
didn't quite like the pattern. So I changed the pattern a little. It was still the scarf, but I had to change it for it to look more real to
Really
me.
the way you wanted.
Or there might be a shadow cast. It's kind of a weird shape. Like sometimes shadows look like things, and the shadow might suggest some unpleasant thing. So I might
Menacing.
just
Yeah.
paint a different shadow. And the
Hmm,
eye is very accepting. If you paint it with the right ideas in mind, it'll still look acceptable to the person. So the important point is that it's not a slice of life. It's not how I see things. It's the structure my brain wants to put on it. I hope that
mhm.
makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense, and it makes sense in light of what I love, and I think, people here going to your website will probably quickly love about your art,
Mm.
which is very much that I feel taken care of visually, or not just taken care of, but elevated. Like, thank you. What a beautiful, orderly, lively scene. Yeah, it's interesting. So Lana in the chat says your paintings are so full of life. That
Thank you.
resonates with me. Yeah, even
I,
though
lo-
they're
I
still lives, right? But they're full of life, which is really interesting. Do you think of them that way?
yeah, I do think of them, and it's funny when I'm studying the setup. It almost seems like the light is kind of alive to me. It's not just a static thing. Like the more I look at something, the more I see. So I don't know if there's any sort of visual scientific data to back up the way light reacts and reflects around a setup, but it seems very
Mhm.
active to me.
Yeah.
And the thing that my work has actually changed in the last like 4 or 5 years and has gotten much more colorful. I
Mhm.
think I think in the beginning when I started painting, I was, without realizing it, emulating a lot of the old masters because
Mm,
they were who I admired.
sure.
But I think there was a point where I painted this really colorful, beautiful vase, and I thought, "Wow, I'm allowed to paint
I can do
color."
more of this. I'm a lot. Yeah, I don't need permission. I
No,
can do
it
more
doesn't
of
have to
this.
look like
Yeah.
an old master painting in a museum. It can be me. And that's when I felt like my paintings really started to look like me.
Huh, cool. Well, again, you can trace it back to the vase. That's so
Yes,
cool.
I can. I do.
It's, a powerful thing when you're introspective enough that you notice those moments and notice what gives rise to them, like what you had to observe or kinda like what you had to put together for yourself. Like, "Oh, I can do that. I can keep doing that. I can deviate from this kinda template that I've learned and admired. I can make this my own." Are there other ways that that's happened for you other than, like, just with the colorfulness?
I think with the compositions too. I think I had this idea that they had to be a certain, like simple in a certain way,
Mm,
like a thing and then another thing. And then like it might line up in a triangle. But I've started doing things that just seem maybe a little bit weirder. I mean, odd that, or might be odd. Like I might tack up something on a wall and paint the tacks just because, not because I'm trying to be funny or cool. It's just that, oh,
mm,
that looks kind of neat. And I wanted the scarf to be that shape. So I just tacked it to the wall. So I felt like I could do things because they were interesting visually to me and not because they were part of a formula that I had learned. Because I, did many, many years of studying composition and studying how to do things. But that's very different from internalizing that and then coming up with something that seems spontaneous, but it's based on years of study.
right. Yeah, that's something that is really interesting to me, the kind of integration of expert skill, expert knowledge, kind of what you gain from those years of study where, somebody might try to skip all that and say, "Oh, no, I'm gonna do my own thing, and I'm gonna be inventive, and I'm gonna just spontaneously arrange things in this way." But, like, I imagine that that just wouldn't work. It wouldn't yield the
Yeah.
kind of synthesis of beautiful parts that you're able to create when you deviate. Something about, know the rules to break them, but
Yeah.
y
Yeah.
beyond that
And
to
it's funny, and that reminds me of something else is I never really think of myself as a creative person.
huh,
I don't know why. I mean,
interesting.
because I don't have like an idea in the night, like, I have an inspiration
Hmm,
for doing this idea. That's not how I work. It's more like I might see my scarf and I think, I like those colors. And I'll go put the scarf on the table and think, well, what goes with that scarf? And then I'll grab something else. And how should I like that? So it's more like it's a craft in a way and it's hard work, but it's not like inspiration. And I guess I've
hmm.
often in my mind, younger, I think, well, creative means like you're inspired and you just do these
Like
crazy
Dave's Ex
wild
Machina, like,
things.
occurs to you out of
Right, in the
the
middle of the
blue.
night, you've gotta get up and you've gotta go, and that's never how it's worked for me. It's more
Hmm.
like I have to build this stuff.
Well, that's, speaking my language,
Mm.
of needing to build the stuff, but that's so interesting, and I wonder how many artists out there, how many serious artists would hear what you're saying now and actually really resonate. 'Cause I know we have these kind of stereotypical we have these artist archetypes. Yeah, oh, yes, they like, in the middle of the night, they're struck by an image that they now must, realize or like the kind of spontaneity and the chaos of an
Yeah,
artist's
and that's very
life.
attractive image to a
Something
lot of
about that,
people.
yeah, like, it's kind of there's a romanticism to it, but if you actually look at the day-to-day experience of making art, there's so much discipline, there's so much, kind of practice and repetition and iteration on a skill, on
It
a
is.
an arrangement.
It's like you can't wait to be inspired. I can't tell you how scary it is to go in the studio many days. It's like,
Hmm.
I mean, I have to make myself go in there. And I've
Mm.
got a certain routine I go through, like putting the paint on the palette and getting my supplies. And like I get into this mode. And the night before, I write down something easy to do. Like the night before, I might notice that area needs to be a little bluer. Something really simple. And I write it down. So the first thing the next day, I have a very clear step that requires
So
no creativity or genius.
fascinating. Yeah,
And
it's
that
like
gets
right the
me
first sentence. It's like
and
just
it's
has
like, "Oh, I can mix that blue and I can do," and then once I start, it's 3 hours later.
yeah, now
So,
you're in flow.
yeah,
Fascinating.
so
I
it's
mean,
like
it's so
Never
Yeah,
wait to be inspired. It's like you just have to.
just get started.
I mean, I don't know
That
if this
I'm
is
gonna
other
write that
people's
down.
experience. This is my experience.
I mean, it's funny, but here you describe it's very much my experience with writing.
Oh, writing would be similar, I think.
I mean, it sounds almost identical in that if I try to wait for inspiration to strike, or if I wait until I feel like it, then nothing will ever get written. And like having these rituals that you're describing, having these hacks to kind of just break it down, make it easy to be able to kind of overcome the initial inertia and the kind of to muster the activation energy to start and to remember and trust that it will be so much easier and so much more natural and enjoyable once I've gotten into it, right? Once I've kind of put the first once I've got the outline, once it like
Exactly.
I
And
stick
also,
with it.
another thing, my paintings take months and months, like 6 months to complete. And the way I work is very slow and layered. So at no point, it feels like at no point do I really ever have to be brilliant, like right away.
Huh,
It's like the
that's
other
so
image of the
helpful.
artist is just
Yeah,
painting everything at once. I
right.
don't do
Yeah,
that.
which but that one just we know is just wrong. That the no real masterpiece gets made that way, like
Yeah,
in one
yeah.
shot, in one draft. And actually, I am curious, and in the chat, Itay is asking a question adjacent to one I was already wondering about, which is sort of like around drafting
Mhm.
and around like failure in the context of painting. Yeah, are there paintings that you kind of get a ways into and then you toss it and you start over, or you realize it's not quite what you thought you wanted, or how does or
And that
do you
doesn't
always find a way to kind of
that doesn't
iterate?
actually happen to me because the
Hmm,
way I work is so, I guess, meticulous. I take pictures of my setup with my phone, lots and lots, and I change like a little thing and I compare them.
hmm.
And then I'm like the night after I've been composing, I'm just looking through my pictures, comparing one to the other just to decide. So by the time I come up with a composition, it's
You already it like
yeah,
that's already
emotionally I've already done the painting without
fascinating.
even ever having drawn it. Like that's the painting. And
Wow. And
so
so
then I
in a
do
way, like, it's the architect's sketches that you're doing when you arrange it before you've ever laid, a paintbrush to a
yeah, it
page,
is the thing.
and that you go through many drafts of. Like, that's the drafting stage in a way, if I'm hearing
Yeah,
right.
that's where the ideas are happening. And then when I finally do a very detailed drawing, and then I finally start to paint, it's pretty much set. I mean, and if I discover very occasionally there's something I want to change, oil paint's very forgiving, and you can
Mhm.
I
Don't
might say, "What was I thinking? Like this vase has been here all these months, and now that was really wrong. It really should be here." So sometimes you just don't see, but
mm,
yeah, I
interesting.
don't think I've ever thrown away. I might not like a painting as much after I finish it as I thought I would have.
Sure, that can happen. Fascinating. I wanna come back to something because I noticed you saying, it's not like it's hard for you to start, it's often scary to first go into the
Mhm. Oh,
studio, which
yeah.
it's such a relatable experience for so many of us. It's different, I imagine, from, when you were describing like, your job in industrial design and how, like, it wasn't fun and it was you had to make yourself do it. Like, it's that same wording, you had to make yourself do it, but I bet
Mhm.
it's very different having to make yourself get started with painting versus having to make yourself, go and do another day's industrial design work. Like, tell us, how is it different on the inside?
Well, I have the evidence of many, like 30 years of knowing that when I do get in there, I'm happy as can be
Yeah,
until I have to stop for lunch. And then I don't want to stop for lunch because I know as soon as I stop for lunch, I've got to do the whole thing
yeah.
again
The whole you gotta
after
rev
lunch.
up again and get back into, "Oh, yes. This is
Yeah.
how I
So,
end up skipping many meals."
but with
Yep.
with the like industrial design, I was actually designing, excuse me, fixtures for department stores that would hold clothes. I worked for a clothing company, and I wasn't really convinced that the thing I was doing like was any good. I wasn't sure it was good or not. So it wasn't there was that having to make myself do it, but there wasn't like the reward at the end.
Right. Like, the whole thing, uh, through and through was just a manual kinda override of boredom, of
Yeah.
disinterest. It's not like
Hmm.
you were revving up for something that would then nurture you and
Exactly.
reward you with,
Exactly.
with meaning and beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really important distinction that I think takes a while for a lot of ambitious people to grok. Like, there's it's not that once you find the thing you love, you'll have an easy time and you won't struggle and you won't need discipline and it'll all just feel easy. It's that it'll be worth it. And how it'll be worth it, it's very hard to kind of understand in the abstract before you've experienced it.
Hmm.
Like, don't you like you will be able to actually trust in the way you put, you have 40 years worth of experience to draw on that, like, you will love this once you start. Like, there will be much to reward you and to be able to kind of see the painting come together and to know, kind of what you're building on.
And it's not always total struggle. I mean, if I haven't painted in a week, it's harder. If I painted just yesterday, it's easier. So
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say it was like always this angst, but
Sure.
there's always this like hump, let's say.
Yeah. I think at the very minimum, yeah, we need to get ourselves, to turn the engine on, right? It's like, or kind of get our motor running. And the longer it's been off and, the more inertia, right, is it kind of has gotten in between us and the doing of the thing. Yeah, like the more work, the more tricks, the more energy we're going to need to marshal.
Yeah. So I let myself procrastinate a little bit. Like if it's valuable procrastination, like I'll put a load of laundry in and then I'll go.
Yeah, what would any of us do without productive procrastination? Honestly, it's one of the important tools in our in our shed of ambition. Yeah. So I feel like I have to ask, given the age we're living in, what of AI? Like, is it relevant at all to your work? Do you see it making a difference tactically or strategically? Or, do you see new art forms arising altogether? How are you thinking about it?
I'm sure there'll be new art forms arising, and that doesn't bother me. I mean, because if it's valuable, I mean,
Sure.
humans made it,
Great.
on some
Yeah.
level. So, and I don't feel like what I do will be replaced because what I do is it's so intensely personal that I don't feel like
Yeah.
anything else could do it. So I don't feel threatened by it. Um,
By the way, just quickly on that point, if it was going to be replaced, it would have been replaced by photography,
well, I
which
was going to
people
mention that
worried
too.
about at the time.
Yeah, people really worried about that at the time,
Mhm.
and it didn't happen. It's a tool. It's another tool. So
Yeah.
where I've mostly noticed AI is being helpful for me in helping me with some of the writing I have to do,
Mhm.
organizing, like helping me come up with a syllabus for a class.
Yeah.
And even though I have to end up like arguing with chat, like,
Sure.
oh,
Of
that's
course.
terrible.
Yeah.
But
Yep. Can you please make it not bad?
yes,
That's my
so I
follow-up
end up.
prompt.
I feel like in a way I end up working just as much. But I found it
Yeah.
for me personally that's very valuable
Yeah.
to do that for that part of my business. But it has like zero impact so far on my painting, and I'm not saying that'll always be true
Sure. Yeah, I
because
think,
it's also
yeah, I
new.
was yeah, we were starting to when you were telling me about kind of some of the just constraints of filming yourself versus not, and why do you sometimes, like, why is it sometimes a drag? Because you're kind of self-conscious in a different way if you've got
Yeah.
the camera running versus not, and I was saying, like, well, could you just film yourself all the time? And then you were saying, like, well, okay, that is completely impossible to then go and edit, and it would be so exhaustively, like, that's so much to get. And I was thinking, like, well, what if AI could do it? I don't know
Yeah,
if
no, I had forgotten about that. Yeah, that would be great. But again, that would be again in a sort of a technical sort of
yeah, yeah, just kind of making the
capacity.
technical parts easier. Yeah.
But as far as the creative bit, I
Mhm.
don't really think about it. Maybe I should. I don't
Yeah. At least
know.
there's not an obvious use case for, like, the process you described to us, where you're carefully arranging physical objects in your environment in a way that pleases your eye and that uh, gives you a certain visual experience, and then rendering it in paint. I like nothing in
Yeah,
what I just said obviously lends itself to AI
I
assistance,
mean,
right?
like I could theoretically take a picture of what I did and ask AI to like rearrange it, but that like it hurts my soul to even think about that because like no,
That's the
I'm
you
the
part.
one. I
Yeah,
have to
that's
do
the whole
that.
point of, yeah, that's the artist's
Yeah.
contribution right there. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. In some ways, it's sort of a helpful. differentiator for, like, even for me to notice when I have that flinching reaction. It's like, no, 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 no. AI is not taking that. That is not. I am not outsourcing that. Like that's meaningful. That's a meaningful signal. Like, oh, right, that's really essential.
It's like even for, like,
Here.
my Substack, like, in my mind, it's like, "No, that has to be me," because it's always been like a journal for me. Whereas
Yeah.
if it's a marketing email about a class, no, well, that's okay. You can help me with that.
Totally. Yeah. Um, am I seeing? I think we already asked that question. Yeah. One thing I was curious about because I know you as much, kind of through your excellent parenting of my friend Dagny as as through your art and otherwise. And I'm curious. You mentioned, as a parent to a young child, the still life, the fact, the accessibility of objects was a feature. Are there
Mhm.
any other intersections, like when you think about your role as a parent, especially through this, of an infant, of a toddler, of a small child, of a not so small child, and sort of how your art intersected, whether there were opportunities to also like educate or onboard, your daughter to what you were doing, or whether it inspired you in any way, like, or were they kind of parallel tracks for you, if that
I
makes sense?
think more parallel, really. I mean, it was understood very clearly between my husband and me that I was only going to have a child if I could keep painting. So there had to be a nanny in there. So
Mm.
like that was part of the deal. And I used to feel bad about that. I used to count the number of hours she was with the nanny to make sure she didn't think the nanny was her mother. It
Aw,
turned out I didn't need to worry about
you really didn't need to worry about that, but as a
yeah,
mom, I get it.
yeah.
But of
Yeah,
course you did worry about
as it
that.
turns out, like, Dagny's nanny still works for me
Aw,
as my assistant, and she's like Dagny's
cool.
second mother. So it's like it was really a
Great.
great thing that she had this it was really nice to have this other person who could be helping me, and it was there too. But, I'd be in my studio and she'd be with the nanny, and, I'd see her a lot, and I didn't paint every day, and
Mhm.
I still drove her to school. So it wasn't that I was, like, away at an office,
Right.
but it was always very clear to me that I was never really a mother, like, I didn't wanna be a mother all my life, and it
Yeah.
wasn't super and it's like, I love her to pieces, and it's the most important thing I ever did, having her, but I never really loved kids and
Mhm.
loved, like, the playground and all that stuff. Like, I would rather be in my studio than at the playground. So,
Totally.
it worked out for me, and I don't think she resented it. She hasn't said she's resented it.
I've
Um
never picked up on any such vibe. And if anything, I imagine, like, I mean, I've never asked her, so this is total speculation and just kind of imagining myself in her shoes, but I think it'd be really cool to grow up with an artist mom. Like, that's not something that a lot of kids get to see up close. It's not something that, and to be able to see, like, wow, like, my mom makes time for her art, and like, she has this really cool job. It's not like some, random office job that's 9 to 5, like other moms who just kinda grumble about their work. Like, she actually seems to love her work, and how
I should
cool is
a
it? Like,
I
she's
should
making these
ask
beautiful
I
pictures.
don't think I've
You should
ever
ask
asked her that
her.
question. I
You
should
should bring
ask
her
her.
in here.
And also she would come in my studio and she would paint and, we sort of sometimes I think she might actually have been an artist if I hadn't been, but I sort of took
Oh,
that.
interesting.
That's
Yeah,
just
I
a
feel like
guess
it makes
because
sense to
she's
what your mom did. Yeah, that's
so I
interesting.
don't know about that.
Well, I get for her too, it is not too late. Who knows what the
That's
future
right.
as your story shows, life
That's
is
right.
long and can have
Life is long.
multiple chapters. So, interesting. Yeah, is there anything I haven't asked you about that you feel like people curious about, ambition and the building of great lives might wanna hear about?
Well, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's still a process. I feel like when you asked me to do this talk, one of my first thoughts was, well, I don't have a career yet, which is ridiculous because I do. But there's so much more that I
Even
want to
you are still feeling that way.
yeah,
Imagine the
there's
rest
like
of us over here.
there's so much more I want to do. Like I want to
Yeah,
be
tell
in
us
art.
about that. Yeah.
I want to get a
Mhm.
better gallery and I want to have more collectors and I want my prices to go up and I want to earn money. That's something I didn't used to think about, but I really
Mhm.
do want to earn money now. So there's this whole and I want to teach more. So there's a lot of stuff that I still want to do that I feel like I need to work on. So
you still have a lot of ambitions that
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
kind of eyeing, and you're threading the needle between a bunch of these components of the work that now are really like coming together into a whole. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think just finally, the social media thing has been super helpful for me, not just because it's just so amazing. When I started out, if you wanted to, like, submit work to a gallery, you had to take pictures and send them slides and then write them a letter, and then you wait for them to call. It was like this very slow process with lots of gatekeepers, and now it's like I can just sell things from through my website, and it's quick, and I can lots of people who can see my work, and I can answer questions. So, I think Instagram's been great for that. I mean, Instagram can be annoying, but it's really been great
Yeah,
for
this is
that.
actually I'm so glad you're bringing this up because I feel like this is one of the dimensions of your story that it, like, offers the most counterintuitive insight because, people are so down on social media these days, and it's such a like, there's so much kinda negative loading to you like, it's an addiction and it's, like, cheap dopamine hits, and it kills our
Mhm.
creativity and it kills our connection, which for a lot of people, yeah, it does function that way. And I mean, I'm curious, like, do you think you would have the career that you have or anything resembling it in a world without social media or even without the internet?
I doubt sometimes I think not. I mean, it's hard to imagine now without it. And I mean, just to know that at any time a gallery could just see my work and see all of my work and
Yeah.
see details of it and know, it's something that just would never have happened. So I think it's great. And I find Instagram annoying sometimes because I have to make all these like 15-second reels that don't give people time to think, and people complain they're going too fast, and I think, "I
Mhm.
know they're fast, it's a reel, it's
Right.
social
And why
media."
do they have to be 15 seconds? Remind me, 'cause
Because
I'm
then
actually
people
not
won't
much of an
I
Instagrammer.
mean, they don't have to be, but they tend not to be watched very much if they're not short. Because people have such minuscule attention spans that if you
Right.
wanna catch people's views and you want people to
Interest.
follow you, you need to make it quick, which is sort of anti-conceptual in a lot of ways, so I've had to figure out ways to say complicated things quickly.
Hmm.
And then
Interesting.
have a
I mean, and
and
what's
then
that
have a
been like? Mhm.
it's frustrating, and then you have a big caption underneath that where all the words are, or, "See my Substack for more." But it's it's annoying, and it would be nice if people could spend, like, 30 seconds instead of 10 seconds on something, and sometimes they will,
Yeah. I mean, have you
but
like, what's the most views you've gotten on a video that's longer than 15 seconds or that it's even like a minute? Or I don't know what the longest that you've played with is.
probably the longest really has only ever been about 30 seconds, and I think probably about 6,000,000 views is
Okay.
the most I've ever gotten.
I mean, to most of us who haven't been experimenting on Instagram for, like, what, years now,
Mhm.
that does not sound like an easy number to like, that sounds extraordinary.
Yeah, I figured out this formula for, like, getting people interested, and it just seems to work so far. I mean, Instagram's always changing, so what works today doesn't work tomorrow.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I do you feel like you're lowering your standards or somehow, like, compromising or lowering your bar, or is it something else you're doing?
No, I just accept it, and I think people accept it that this is a certain thing, like, reel on Instagram. It's not meant to be an essay. It's
Right.
meant to be fun, it's meant to be exciting, it's meant to make you think, and it's meant to make you look on my website if you're interested, or write me a DM and I'll explain it, or look on my Substack and we can, like, go into depth. So I don't feel like I'm compromising. I'm just sort of participating in a certain format that allows me to reach a lot of people. But,
Yeah,
like, I'm
like
not
it's
on TikTok. Like, I would find TikTok annoying.
right.
So
Yeah, so you've accepted the constraints of the medium and sort of the shared expectations and norms of the medium in a way that I mean, I've watched some of even though I'm barely on Instagram, like,
mhm,
you're one of the a very few people where I've actually watched some of your reels,
mhm.
and the feel that I get from them is very much like it is it's both highbrow and accessible, and, like, it's actually providing this kind of nugget of like a little window. Like I got to have a little peek at a really thoughtful, sophisticated process of
That's
making
great to
something
hear. 'Cause
beautiful.
that's exactly what I want, and that would be a great reaction. That's the best reaction I could hope for.
I mean, I think you're achieving that, and I think that's in a way. I guess I wonder, is it also doing anything for you? And it may or may not, and I don't think it has to. But for example, with Twitter, which everybody complains about, again, you doom scroll and you get addicted, and
Mhm.
everyone's forced to have these little bite-sized takes. The bite-sized takes have been immensely valuable for me as epistemic training because what it's forced me to do is actually distill my rambly, complicated thought into its
Mhm.
essence and actually
Oh,
say the
yeah.
essence. Like, so for me, Twitter has actually been really good for my brain in a way that's so counterintuitive to most people because, they're on about all the cognitive kind of costs of
Yeah,
it.
I wouldn't have thought about it that way, but that seems true. You have to distill it down to its essence.
Yeah. And there's probably something similar you're doing, right, with these reels where it needs,
Yeah, now that
maybe
you
you want to
mention
say
it.
60 seconds,
Now that you mention it, yeah. And some of it's just eye candy, like mixing
which is
colors.
lovely. Yeah. It's better eye candy than a lot of other kinds of candy that we might consume. Oh, we have a practical question from Nathan. What's your suggestion for people who want to get started painting but have no idea where to start or what to buy? I feel like there are so many different things and I don't know where to start. Bob Ross, perhaps. I actually don't even know who
I
that
don't know
is.
much about Bob Ross. I mean,
Or Linda Mann. She's
yeah,
got
that's
some
right.
great
I teach,
Instagram reels. You should check her out.
and I actually, have a class coming up in August that I'm gonna be
Ooh.
teaching on still life painting. So, I mean, there are some online classes you can get if you like research. And I'm not sure what kind of painting you're interested in, but the first thing I would do is try to find out if there are any schools in your area where you can actually be there in person,
Mm,
because there are a lot of art schools, and the basics aren't that hard to find. Most importantly, drawing, perspective, color theory, depending on what you want to do. Um, and I learned like 70% of what I know from books, older books typically that were written like before 1900, but you can learn an awful lot from books. I mean, if you're interested and you want a list of books from me, you
mm.
can write me a note and I can get you a list of books. But as far as schools, I mean, I would just see what's available for you in your area.
Yeah. Thank you. That I think that gives a really good idea. And I mean, in the age of AI, I do also feel like Claude would be really helpful, or ChatGPT for, I want to learn to draw, or even like I want to learn in this style. Do you know what schools could be, are available in my area, or any of them well reviewed, or, you know,
Yeah,
can you
that's a
tell
good
me what
idea.
I should buy for a first, to be able to go through this book by myself, or whatever the case may be. I feel like it's really good at kind of curating that sort of syllabus for, you
Yeah,
know, education. Okay, well, this has been both instructive and inspiring.
it's
Thank you so
fun.
much.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, likewise. Anything else that you wanna share, or those listening, this is your chance if you had any questions for Linda, if you wanted to, follow up on any of what she shared just about kinda her, internal experience and process as an artist. Anything we wanna leave our listeners
Trying to
with?
think if there's anything else. No, I think we've covered quite a lot of stuff. So my mind is a blank right now.
Yeah, because you've left it all on the page.
No,
Yeah,
you asked really great questions. I wanted to thank you for that. Really thoughtful.
I mean,
And
it's
it made me think about things that I hadn't thought about for a while. So that was really helpful.
yeah, well, thank you for, bringing your introspective nature to it and
You're
yeah,
welcome.
your honesty, reflectiveness. Where can everyone I mean, they have your website, your Instagram, but how would you want somebody to get started in their exploration of Linda Mann?
Well, there's my Substack where I pretty much talk about my process. It's more process oriented than philosophy oriented, but I pretty much bring you through every painting I'm doing and what stage I'm at. So that's sort of fun. And for my paintings, my website. And Instagram's fun if you want to see my reels and keep up with what's going on more like an up-to-date way. It depends on what your interests are, but if you're more interested in following along, I would say the Substack.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully you get a flurry of new subscriptions today.
Well, that'd be great.
You should all be able to find Linda from here, right? From this chat. Can go straight to her Substack, but
Is
but
that how it
just
works?
in case, here, let's go ahead and also throw it into the chat. So no one has any excuse to
Great.
not subscribe. Thank you so much, Linda. This has been a
Thank you,
joy.
Gina. It was so much fun.
Yeah, no, very
Okay.
much
Bye,
likewise. And
everybody.
yeah, look forward to buying some of your paintings one of these days.
I look forward to that too. Bye.
Bye, everybody.